The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Hail Varsity Radio. We're here in Columbus, about a mile and a half from Ohio Stadium, Nebraska and Ohio State this weekend. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you can always watch the show and find us on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there, Hail Varsity Radio. Twitter at HVarsity Radio. And as always, find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio at Herbal Essence for Elijah. So we are kind of in the midst of a 3-year run where we've gone on the road, and it's not always been wonderful for Nebraska, but we've had fun getting out on the road, different venues around the Big Ten, and one country itself in Ireland is kind of what kickstarted this thing. But we're here at the Marriott, again, a mile and a half from Ohio Stadium. It's the Ohio State Marriott as it's deemed. There's a ping pong table in back. There's a bar behind me. And it was pretty just glorious seeing all the colors of fall. Once I left Chicago on my connecting flight over Lake Michigan, you get into Indiana and then find your way down the Ohio Valley. I mean, Bob Ross from 30,000 feet went nuts with all the colors, man. It was pretty good. So we'll talk a little Nebraska, Ohio State. We'll hear from Gary Barnett in hour 2. The coach, get his take on Nebraska and the offensive woes. Ohio State insider Tim May with Lost Letterman on 3. Tim May going to be with us in hour 2. And our dear friend and writer extraordinaire Brandon Vogel from Counter Read. Counter Read checks in about 15 minutes, 489-1240, 489-1240. And kind of our theme today, road essentials. Not what we're asking the football team to pack for Columbus, but what do you take on the road when you hit the road to follow Husker Nation and be a part of these trips, these endeavors that are near and dear to your heart? You're looking for a different result. Some shout outs real quick, Elijah. Shout out to our friend Jeff Mull with Visit Lincoln and this project he kind of helped spearhead when it comes to the Big Ten and all of the folks getting together in the Big Ten, cities of the Big Ten. It's a project they did as football season got kicked off into August. Of course, things you can do around Lincoln and the capital city, which is awesome when you make your way or you find your way into downtown Lincoln from around the state. But other places from the Big Ten love visiting Lincoln. Conversely, other places like Columbus, like Ann Arbor, like East Lansing, you name a Big Ten school, our new friends out on the West Coast, they have provided must-see stops and places to visit. So Jeff Mull was a big part of that and got us connected with the good folks here at the Marriott, Ohio State. Big shout-out to Bobby. Big shout-out to Lisa for getting us connected. We are here today. We are here tomorrow for a Hail Varsity Roadshow Friday. And we're here for the weekend edition pregame, probably 7:30 to 9:30-ish. For Saturday morning, and then Real Red Reaction follows. That's a bit of business. I wanted to say thanks. And Elijah will have you en route tomorrow. So I'm sure the plane left without Elijah. Tiger Shark, he got a different flight because Elijah is running the show today and tomorrow morning. TSD can or TSA, I think, Justin, is what you mean.
He's referring to Tiger Shark Diver's comment.
Okay. I thought he was going TSA here and Elijah tomorrow. We can only allow Elijah one day each week out of the studio. If not, he starts thinking he can come and go as he pleases. So, Justin, good stuff. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs, and we'll kind of look at the term of progress and the theme of road essentials, Elijah. And you sent me a picture that made me laugh out loud. It was a pack of smokes and a pint of whiskey. You aren't fooling around. You're traveling light tomorrow, it looks like.
Well, it's all you really need whenever you hope for the best, but expect the worst. That's kind of the vibe this weekend with just this game as a whole. And if you're expecting the worst, what are you going to need post game? Some whiskey and some smokes. That's what type of game it is. So bringing that along with me. I don't smoke, actually. I'm not sure if they even allow that on planes. Can you pack?
They do not.
Yeah, we'll figure that out tomorrow. But yeah, it's kind of like a hope for the best, expect the worst type situation with my packing. It's a quick trip. Leaving tomorrow, coming back on Sunday.
Are you direct?
Yeah, I am.
Look at you, you dirty, dirty monkey.
Yeah, 1 hour and 45 minutes once that plane takes off from Omaha, total travel time. So I'm looking forward to that. So
I got picked up at 2:30 this morning from my brother's place in Gretna. The Uber driver, just going to lay it out there. He's like, where you going? I'm like, well, going to Columbus. He's like, you're going to go check that out, huh? I'm like, yes, I am. He's like, so are you watching Nebraska this year? And the Uber driver, young dude, good dude. And he's like, dude, when I watch Nebraska football, I'm too emotionally invested. I get upset. So I try and check highlights. And this guy's in his mid-20s. I try and check highlights and want them to win. But if things like last Saturday happen, I get upset. And that's a common sentiment. Even Junior, right? We were watching the ball game last Saturday. And in the second half, I'm like, well, where'd you go? And I hear, oh, okay, whatever go shoot it up game he was playing. Yep, parent of the year here. Forgive me.
Oh, like a Call of Duty, not like not a junkie simulator.
Right. So he's playing Call of Duty. It's like, what are you doing down there, man? The second half's starting. He's like, it's over. And I'm releasing some of my anger and stress. Like, all right, dude. So that's what he went and did. But hey, you know what? Saturday, Vegas says 25.5 right now. Vegas says 35 to 10-ish is what we're looking at. And, when we talk about progress for Nebraska, we'll get into that. I mean, it really kind of comes down to me with Nebraska coming out playing fast and playing physical and just let it fly. Let it fly and don't help them out with turnovers or lack of execution. Just go try and play hard. Yeah. That sounds like a pat on the head and a participation ribbon, but it's not. And I, you know what? I'm not expecting a win, but I'm not expecting anything close to last week. And Ohio State is damn good, but I think Nebraska can stick around for a little bit. And I know that sounds idiotic, and we'll get to some of the stream comments here as a roadshow Thursday here at the Ohio State Marriott Hail Varsity Roadshow this weekend. But road essentials, for me, it's always my nebulizer, praying it doesn't break, my iron lungs with my asthma. On a serious note, got to have a quarter zip or 3. I have 3/4 zips. That's always a road trip.
I'm bringing 2.
Essential. Are we going to twin on Saturday?
I hope not. The one that we usually twin in, I think I'm wearing tomorrow, so that should help.
Okay.
Us.
That means I got to move it to Saturday.
Okay, right. Well, I'm glad that would have been awkward, showing up in Columbus tomorrow at the hotel twinning.
Chris and Elijah wearing the same KFOR quarter zip. Love it. So it's quarter zip, it's asthma medicine, and then it's just a pretty much extra pair of underwear. Sorry.
That's important.
That's what it is. Those are some of my road essentials, and find the best bar in the city. That sounded wrong, but find the best bar in the city.
It might be behind you, Schmidt. We might be hitting that up tomorrow night.
I am staring at the Marriott bar right now, and the Bombay is waving, as is the Goose, as is the Templeton. So there are all sorts of options on top of beers.
But and kind of the question to me with that hotel bar is like, what do we need to see from Nebraska on Saturday to keep us from hitting the bar during the postgame show? That's kind of the thought I have, and to me it's simple. Nebraska doesn't have to win this football game. They just have to inspire any sort of confidence that it won't be a massive hurdle to get to 6. That's what you're looking for. Like if it looks like UCLA and Wisconsin and Iowa and USC are all going to be an uphill climb based on how you played over the last 2 games, that's the point where you say, you know what, pour me up a double shot. Like, it's going to be a long last couple weeks if you're just hoping for 6. You need something to inspire confidence that this team will get to 6 based on Saturday. It's not about the final score. It's about will they get to 6. And to me, are they hanging tough? The one thing Ohio State has struggled with over the course of probably 5 seasons is when a team comes in and out-physicals them. Mm-hmm. That's what causes them difficulties. And they've won football games where the team has come in and out-physicaled them because they have such an overwhelming amount of talent. But based on the way Nebraska kind of got physically manhandled last week against Indiana, I want to see that chip on the shoulder type bounce-back performance where you go in there and you're the more physical football team. You might not be the more talented football team, but if you can show up and be the more physical football team, it means you can slow down Ohio State's rushing attack. You can try to make them one-dimensional. If you can do those 2 things, and maybe not make them fully one-dimensional, but more one-dimensional in that they're going to be probably better moving the football through the air. That's what I think is more likely from this Husker defense, that they can slow down the rushing attack. If you can do that, you can hang tough in this football game. And that's what I'm looking for. It's mostly on the defense to me to be able to keep Nebraska around. The offense, absolutely a work in progress, absolutely very limited in what it can do. Both in terms of scheme and in terms of talent. Like, I'm not expecting them to come out there and put up 42 points on Ohio State. That's not how you win this football game. We'll talk with Vogel here in a second about his column. When Nebraska wins football games, their defense plays like a top 10 unit. Do you see that against Ohio State? Probably not. It's a tough team to go and do it against, but that's the type of effort and intensity, physicality you need from the Husker defense. To go out there and give your offense a chance to hang in the football game.
Elijah, both of these teams don't like getting smacked in the face.
Yep.
And they don't respond well when they are smacked in the face. So that to me is, I need Nebraska to be aggressive. I need Nebraska to be absolutely aggressive on offense, not stupid, but be aggressive on offense. And aggressive can be having a fullback in and being physical downhill. It can be some run blitzes. It can be sending extra folks after Will Howard. Will Howard's a really good quarterback, and I know he's mobile and he's big. And he's a really nice point guard, but maybe you rattle his cage a little bit and hit him a little bit. Maybe a smack around the receivers a little bit, and it's easier said than done. But for certain, those big guys up front, Ty and Nash, man, you gotta bounce back. And I know you're getting double teamed all the time, but try and keep your friends in that second level cleaner, longer than last Saturday.
The games where the defense has done well this year has been the games where they've been violent. They lacked violence against Illinois. I think they lacked some violence against Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa, you out-talented by so much it really didn't matter. But you lacked some violence there. You lacked a whole bunch of violence last week against Indiana. If you want to have a chance in this football game, you got to gritty it up, make it a Big Ten West type football game where it's violence from your defense, it's physicality, and it throws Ohio State's offense off from what they want to do. That's what Chip Kelly has done. He's come in and made Ohio State's offense truly balanced, where if they hand the ball off or if they drop back to pass, there's danger both ways to the Husker defense. Hasn't always been like that at Ohio State. That's why I think they're going to go far this season, is because they have that balance offensively. You got to be the more violent football team and take one of those two things away from Ohio State. If you don't, it's going to be a long day. If you can make them more one-dimensional than they usually are, a la their offenses of years past, you stand a chance of at least keeping the score respectable, and you never know in the second half, anything can happen. I'm not saying I'm betting on Nebraska, not by any means.
See if you can hang around, man.
See if you can hang around and see if things can get weird on a Saturday early afternoon in Columbus. If you can hang around, you never know what can happen in college football. Momentum's a hell of a drug. that's what the task is. Do I think they pull it off? No, I'm not confident based on what I've seen from this football team. But you have all the motivation in the world based on what happened last week to go out there and be the more violent football team.
489-1240. Want to join us here on a road show Thursday in Columbus. Hail Varsity on the road at the Ohio State Marriott. Other Dave is in. Loose Lips asks, what are we fighting about today? Well, clearly not Elijah's travel bag or goodie bag he takes to travel. Pint of whiskey, pack of cigarettes, blindfold. Donnie is in. Mr. Snitley is here. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Jay is here, asking if there should be a move now or Monday for Nebraska's offensive coordinator. Jay, not going to happen. We'll hear a little bit from Matt Rule here this hour regarding that. Justin's checked in. Brent is here. As well as 3-Putt says fired up for UCLA. I like that. That's pretty good. Mr. Erickson's in. Good to have Mr. Erickson. NASCAR Eric is here. Dion, good to have you, bud. Dion's still pissed and embarrassed. We'll talk it out, Dion. It's all good. Brandon Vogel coming up. Counter Read. Hail Varsity here on the road in Columbus.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hail Varsity on the road. We're here in Columbus. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Counter Reads. Brandon Vogel with us. Counterread.com. My mother is texting me from the south of France, and my lovely mom's been with friends abroad between Greece and Turkey on some extravaganza. It's pretty cool. It's a church-related trip, and then they get to Europe and check out some World War II history. But we have not been in contact much here and there. Vogues with the WhatsApp, and she asked me, when do you leave for Ohio?
I was just gonna follow it up. Where would you rather be this time of year? The south of France or Columbus, Ohio? And Columbus is great, don't get me wrong, but
I've not been to the south of France. That is Johnny Depp territory, but it's also wine country, Vogues.
You're muted. Uh-oh, Brandon's muted. There it is.
There
Hi, Vogues. Yeah. Good to see you, bud.
I was stressed for a second.
Good to see you. No, it's tough to beat South France, I think, almost any time of year. But it's also tough to, even given the state of things, even given the spread on this game, it's tough to beat a late October Big Ten Fall Saturday, too. So you still got it pretty good, Schmitty.
It's been a grueling boo-hoo, right? Boo-hoo, but it's been a grueling travel day, but it's awesome. I mean, it's really cool to see a plane full of Nebraska fans, 2 planefuls of Nebraska fans that left Omaha, connecting in Chicago for me, connecting in St. Louis for Uncle Mitch, friend of the show, and they're all descending on Columbus. Now, you make your plans not after Indiana, but you make your plans in the off season to get here. But what does Brandon Vogel? What are your road essentials? This is kind of our theme today. Pint of whiskey, blindfold, cigarettes for Elijah. It's my nebulizer for the old windbag here, and then also the address of the best bar in the city to visit. Best can be whatever is up to your interpretation. When you travel, all the times you have traveled, and right now, I mean, we got guys putting suitcases of Busch Light. I mean, they're being unpacked into the cart here at the Marriott before the clothing. The priorities are very, very important, where you're putting the 30 packs down on the gurney before the clothing. What do you pack for the road?
Well, I think having whether it be Best Bar or a restaurant you want to try, having at least, and it's usually good like for a weekend trip like this, you got to have one destination of like, I want to go eat here. I want to go check this place out, whatever it is. So that's always up there. And on these kind of Friday to Sunday, football trips, that might be all you have time for. So I like the approach of not overloading yourself. So that's always good. I'm kind of a coffee guy, so occasionally I'll pack my own coffee, though I see Chris, who appears to be in a hotel lobby, or thereabouts, and I'm like, bring me a coffee from the hotel lobby. I also like bad coffee too. But the key is you mix the hot chocolate packet in the like fairly basic hotel coffee, and hot chocolate packet is basically cocoa powder and milk powder. So you kind of get like a low rent mocha. That would be my other travel tip I have, having spent a lot of time in Hampton Inns and whatnot. Have a destination. If they have the hot chocolate, give it a try in the coffee.
That's impressive. Brandon Vogel's with us here, counterread.com. We won't judge on the Kahlua.
Well,
or the Baileys.
Well, if they have that available too, hey, go ahead.
Brandon, as we talk about your affinity for cheap coffee, I'm kind of with you. Coffee of any kind, I can find appreciation in, probably because of the caffeine, but also like there is something nice about a cup of Folgers sometimes. It reminds me of simpler days, if you will.
Yeah.
Which cheap coffee is Nebraska? Is Nebraska a cheap coffee?
Oh, that's a good question. The coffee choices have so exploded that it's tough to even know what is cheap. Like, however anybody feels about Starbucks, I worked there through all of graduate school, and it was actually a great job and exactly what I needed for that stage of my life. But like the grocery store Starbucks has become kind of a last resort for me. Like, I know it's at a certain level, but it's not what I would choose unless I don't have any other option. Nebraska at 5-2, and this would have been a very different conversation a week ago. But you're 25.5 point dog to Ohio State on the road, which makes complete sense. Like, Nebraska right now feels like a little bit like grocery store Starbucks. Like, it's there's a brand name attached to it. It's not the worst you can do, but it's still got a lot to prove. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it doesn't go down easy, but for the most part, it does get the job done.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good summation.
That's well done. Vogues, from the Road Essentials to Nebraska's Essentials here, is it's going to be interesting to see what the progress looks like here a week later. Now, I can confirm that there is a ping pong table outside one of the meeting rooms. So that's cool. Keep it loose a little bit, or if there is a little bit of downtime, great. I would deem Matt Rule's ping pong game fast and physical. I need to see that from Nebraska on defense on Saturday. Whether or not they give up some big runs or some big pass plays to that phenom Jeremiah that is going to be in the NFL sooner rather than later. Look, you can get beat and you may give up a big play or two, but your goal is not to, through your tackling and through your strength on the line. Get aggressive, man. That's what I want to see from Mr. Tony and company on Saturday.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and Rule said it on Monday. Like, if Nebraska doesn't challenge Ohio State, it's going to get his face beat in. That's the way he chose to put it. And I mean, and that's true. And you guys were talking earlier about the plane ride out and all the Nebraska fans that were there, and well, those plans were made probably far in advance. Well, they weren't made last Sunday night. Let's put it that way. but in a lot of ways, I kind of look at that game like this. So when we were all in the off season and like, you know, talking schedule and penciling things in, like, well, I don't know anybody who would have had Indiana that good. Like, I thought Indiana could be good, but not that good. Mm-hmm. And Nebraska didn't play well. You know, this was the game on the schedule where I think nobody penciled in a Nebraska win. But you kind of looked at it and it was like, hey, here's a chance to go prove something. Like, you may not get the win, but go out and prove that you're up for a battle like this, that you're willing to trade punches with an opponent like this. And that's still all on the table. Like, in a lot of ways, like it's more important for Nebraska to do that now than it was before we saw what happened in the Indiana game. And a lot of that comes down to like preparation and motivation. So in some ways, that's kind of my expectation for this. Like, I love to dig into like esoteric numbers and try to come up with ways of like, here's all these kind of off the radar things that are really important in this game. Against an opponent like this, like, those don't exist. My three keys in today's preview were you got to stop the run, you got to hit some big plays in the passing game, you got to win the turnover battle, which those are keys to almost any game. But the advantage of being in Ohio State is they kind of limit you to just the most basic stuff. And can you do it?
Brendan, in terms of how this game looks on Saturday, what are you going to be watching for to determine if last week was a wake-up call or a reality check, if you understand what I'm saying there? Well, what are some signs of each?
Well, I think being in the game for longer than they were against Indiana would be a start. You know, there's some of these things that are sort of similar to what I just said that are mostly like coaching and kind of effort based, like the perimeter blocking piece of it, tackling, that should come to it. Like Ohio State, I mean, if I had to pick a national title winner right now, I would still pick Ohio State. I wrote about that 2 weeks ago after they lost to Oregon. But on one side of the ball, at least when Ohio State has it, in Nebraska's defense, like, we all saw what we saw against Indiana, but that should be a matchup between two top 10 teams. And it needs to look that way, I think. Like, Ohio State's going to get plays in the passing game. They just are. They're too good at wide receiver, and they've gotten a good enough quarterback that's not your easy way out. But they are, you know, playing a left tackle who is not their backup left tackle. So like Nebraska, this is still a defense that gets pressure on people. Can that become a factor? Like, does this look anything other than just the foregone conclusion that it looks like based on the spread, what we know of Ohio State, and what we saw from Nebraska last week? I think all of that stuff would represent progress and potentially a decent outing for the Huskers.
It's Brandon Vogel with us from counterread.com. He has been to Columbus quite a few times, and we are talking about road trip essentials. I was wowed by this Athletic article on the amount of, they're popular, the Schmidt household, the Uncrustables. Okay. You know, Carson goes through the strawberry packets like they're some sort of addictive substance. So there's always lots being brought in, but not quite as many as Jeff Saturday did back in the day for the Colts or the Kelsey boys. We're talking 15,000 a week by measurement of NFL standards. Cut the crust off a little bit, I guess, is where I'm going if you're Nebraska's offense. Folks, hang tight for us. We'll do a little overtime. It's Hail Varsity on the road. We're here in Columbus. Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back here at Hail Varsity. We're on the road in Columbus. Thursday shows, Friday shows, the weekend edition, leading you up to Big Noon kickoff. And Vogues, the numbers revealed, 3.2 million, the fourth most watched game on last Saturday. The SEC monster number was the monster number. But a lot of folks, despite the beating, saw and tuned in to Nebraska, Indiana. They wanted to get a gander of this Indiana squad who's got a tough ask without their starting quarterback against Washington. Nebraska, tough ask on the road here as a 25.5-point underdog. And I want to get into the ire this week with the fan base. You've heard it. You've received the feedback. The folks that are a part of the in-game chat with Counter Reed, no doubt, had some objections about the play calling or the execution or both. And this isn't to continue to go pinata on Satterfield, but if you're Nebraska, do you have a different approach on offense? Not just with what you're trying to do, i.e. run the ball and be physical, but also, I mean, Glenn Thomas has got experience as a play caller. He was your play caller when you went to the Sugar Bowl, I believe, and went 11-3. Do you get more input? I don't know. I'm not in those meetings, but is that a natural turn if you're Nebraska trying to kickstart this offense?
I think it could be. I mean, it's hard to say because we don't know like how much input Glenn Thomas, for example, has had previously into those things. I mean, we know who has the play caller tag. We know who's up in the booth. So fair enough. I mean, I wrote about this on Monday at Counter Read, like, and it still like kind of shocks me. Like defensively, Nebraska hasn't won when it's given up more than 14 points. Like that's an insane and I would say unsustainable level of defense to expect in a not over a 9-game conference schedule. So like Nebraska's been fortunate in that the defense has gotten it. Almost 10 times over 2 years of the Matt Rule era. But like you just that can't be the baseline for how this program's going to win games. It needs to score more points. It scored 30 points or more once, as we talked about on the last Saturday show, against a power conference opponent. And that's just in today's football, it's too, the margin there is too thin. So when we look at this game, I wrote about it in today's preview. Like it kind of sent me back to 2021. Nebraska was in the midst of the greatest 3-9 season ever, but at that point when it played Ohio State, it was 3-6, and it needed to win to even keep its bowl hopes alive. And similar to this one, nobody gave Nebraska much of a shot. Ended up losing by 9, missed 2 field goals, but Nebraska was +1 in turnover margin that game. They averaged 8 yards a pass, which was pretty good for that offense. Held Ohio State to 3 rushing yards per carry. That's kind of the recipe I was talking about in the early segment. We can go back to 2018 too. A worse Nebraska team, year one of the Scott Frost era. It was +2 in turnovers that day. 8.1 yards per pass for Nebraska. Didn't hold the Ohio State run game down, which kind of became how they ended up losing that game late. Lost by 5. Ohio State had 5.7 yards per carry. So, I mean, these are like some very basic, like simple things that you just have to do to beat Ohio State. They're the things where this started from for me. They're the things that Oregon did against Ohio State just a week ago. And they won by 1 on their home field. So it's still a big challenge. But from the offensive piece of it, I kind of look at it as like Nebraska's been in that range in terms of yards per pass against Northern Iowa and Purdue. Probably the two worst teams has played, although UTEP's certainly in the mix there. So, yeah, any and all kind of new ideas. You need something to shake off last week, particularly so against an opponent as talented as this one.
Brendan, let's say Nebraska doesn't shake off last week, and this week looks the same. It looks much like Indiana, where it's Ohio State early and often. Nebraska's never quite in the football game. If it does look like that, is that the sign to you that it's time for wholesale changes with Matt Rule's rebuild? What would that mean to you?
I don't know if it's there's still a third of the season left at that point. It would be a very troubling side. I don't know if I would immediately jump to like, okay, well, as soon as these next 4 games are over, like Nebraska needs to make huge changes. But they would need to really go out and prove something over those next 4 games, because everyone would point to, and a lot of people were pointing to it last Saturday, myself included, of like, oh, you'd be in the exact same spot. You'd be 5-3 with 4 games to go. And what are you going to do? And these 4 games in 2024 are tougher on paper than what Nebraska was looking at in 2023. So until I saw like what Nebraska did over those final 4 games, and that's just my nature. Like I'm pretty middle of the road. But I expect Nebraska to play. I said it earlier. I expect Nebraska to play better than it did against Indiana. And if they don't, that would be a real sign of some trouble late in the year in year 2, which was not part of anyone's plan for the Huskers. You know, optimistic, pessimistic, wherever you are, you hope to see a steady build. And this would be a sign that, oh, no, there's some major trouble here going into the last month of the season.
You don't want the construction halted. You can't have a pause. You can't have a strike. And what would be unrule-like is it's not getting response from the locker room, effort-wise. And he's not, to my knowledge, experienced that ever. And you've got too many old guys in this room that have said and done the right things for, 2 years with him. So it'll be fascinating to see just the football, as they say. Vogues, I want folks to see counterread.com. You and Aaron Sorensen do an amazing job. Tell folks how they get on board.
Yep. Head over to counterread.com. It's a twice weekly Substack newsletter from myself and Aaron Sorensen. That's 2 exclusive newsletters for subscribers. We also do a couple of free pieces a week. My Monday kind of weekend review column is free to kind of give people a chance to see what we're up to. And then our Saturday game day guide will be free. And then we have our game day chat as well, which is for paid subscribers only. So a lot of ways to check out what we're up to. It would be great one of these years to cover a season that just felt, well, like Indiana's, a little bit magical. We're not in that spot, and that's okay too, because I actually think in times like those, where kind of real considered and carefully constructed analysis can kind of shine. So there's plenty to talk about with Nebraska, where it's at now and what it means for the future. And that's what we've been trying to do this week, and it's what we'll be trying to do after this game, no matter how it goes.
Vogues, we'll talk Saturday morning. Appreciate you, bud.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is, Brandon Vogel with us. We'll get to some more of the comments in the stream as it's Hail Varsity live here in Columbus.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hour 1, winding down on the road here in Columbus. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, the first of 3 days here at Ohio State, the Ohio State Marriott. And again, big thanks to Jeff Mull, Visit Lincoln, and the cities of the Big Ten collaboration he spearheaded. Our friends here at the Marriott, Bobby and Lisa, getting us set up. We'll be here tomorrow, 4 to 6 Central. So if you're making your way to Columbus for Nebraska, Ohio State, come by, say hi, say what's up. The hotel bar here at the Marriott is beautiful and incredible. And there's a few Nebraska fans and Ohio State fans pouring a drink together. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, weighs in. Our theme today, road trip essentials. What do you have to pack with you on the road? It's special teams and defense for us football dorks. Hopefully the hotel bartender isn't a hippie with a man bun on a power trip trying to cut everyone off. Hashtag Boulder Peace Treaty. Hopefully there's silver-tongued devils, Mr. Snitley, in the group of said cut-off people that can talked the bartender into relenting. Tiger Shark chimes in. Road trip bug out bag is jerky. Go pills.
What is that? What's a go pill?
I'm just going to, Tiger Shark, throw a dart here and say speed. I don't know.
I was wondering if that was like Viagra.
I don't know. What is a go pill? Absolutely.
I don't know if we want to know the answer.
Yeah, well, Tiger Shark, open the curtain up, babe. Sugar-free Red Bull, Zyn, formerly Dip, and then sunflower seeds. My brother was trying to tell me about Zyn. Not that he uses, but he was trying to get somebody he knows to switch. It's
did you see it was a 60 Minutes little thing on it? You see that? I think it was
I haven't yet.
We're just talking. They talked with like a some sort of doctor probably. I don't know. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend anyone start using Zyn, but if you're using other things, it's a good thing to flip to comparatively.
Loose Lip says I look like an Ohio State guy.
What? Can we go back? Do you not watch 60 Minutes?
No, I do.
That's a Sunday essential, and I'm waiting for Sunday Night Football.
I know. Well, a lot of times we're doing a pod, brother.
Sunday evening? Oh, no.
Road trip essentials for 3-putt antacids. It's pretty good. There you go. That works. Not awful. I have that natural glow, says Donnie Trump. I got out of the sun. I was getting the reflection. It's all good. The Loose Lips wants to know how many calls Dana's gotten from Rule this week. I'm excited, man. Ping pong tables there. I got the Forrest Gump paddles in back. It's going to be a good weekend.
Schmidt versus Elijah strip pong match. Who says no?
No. That's a warrant that I'll sign and absolutely put my foot down. What are you doing? Cutter is in. Good to have you, Cutter. What's Coach Barnett say? Gary Barnett going to join us here in about 10 minutes. Get Barney's take on Nebraska's Frosch quarterback, play calling, the mess that is Nebraska's offense. Tim May also on the way next hour. It's Hail Varsity. We're here live in Columbus.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it at Hail Varsity on the road here in Columbus. Check in with the Hall of Fame coach, Gary Barnett, as it's Nebraska, Ohio State. Coach, how we doing? Thanks for a few minutes today.
Doing well, Chris. Just, we're in the middle of just a great football season all around the country, and it's just fun to watch it all unfold. I love the games being played, around the country that look like bowl games from the past. And you're seeing matchups. That's the only way we would see them was in a bowl game. And like I've said before, I don't want to do it as a coach, but I sure love it as a fan to watch all this stuff unfold.
Man, it's been dynamite for some. The Big Red Army is still upset about last Saturday, Nebraska, Indiana. Nebraska fans this whole week, Coach, going into Ohio State, folks are still ticked off. I mean, the frustrations have boiled over for a lot of the fan base, and 56-7 looks so bad. I wanted to get your perspective here on what now if you're Matt Rule and the Nebraska football team. What now if you're Nebraska's offensive coordinator, Marcus Satterfield, and Tony White. Tony White's been incredible most of his time in Lincoln, but his defense just got lit up.
First of all, you don't panic like everybody else is panicking. number one thing is you still have a team that you've got to coach, and they're expecting you to coach them, and they need you to coach them. You've got a young quarterback that needs tutoring through this whole process. Everybody goes through it. Every young quarterback goes through it for the most part. The fan base probably got, as usual, a little bit too excited too early. You can't judge it on one game because you got to look back at Illinois was a good football team, and they've proven that. And so you can't feel too bad about that. And you're in a streak where you hit Indiana that's really hot, and they played great. I mean, they've been playing great every week. And they had the momentum coming into that weekend. You turn around, it's just the way the schedule works. You turn around, you go play Ohio State. So you got to just survive that as a team. You've got to always feel like you have a chance. You got to slow everything down in your meeting rooms and just say, look, you can't listen. You can't bite on the rat poisoning when they love you, and you can't bite on it now. And you really got to work through with your young quarterback. You got to find a way to keep the game close and get in the fourth quarter and then see what happens. And so that you just can't panic with your players and can't panic with your coaches.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. You've had inconsistency and, quite frankly, ineptness in the run game. Coach Satterfield, Nebraska's OC coach, said, I need to be more committed to it. Right now, there's not an identity for Nebraska, and I don't know how well they can run the football in the Big Ten. The numbers don't show it. You mentioned quarterback and tight end with a freshman quarterback. That's a great formula. Nebraska's not either been able to execute it or hasn't turned to it. Is that something you can all of a sudden start doing? And I ask you that because Colorado was once one-dimensional. Your team right now, the Buffs, are running the football a little bit better, and man, you guys have kind of flipped things around. The mood's way different than when you left Lincoln.
Yeah, no question, and you really do. I mean, like I've said so many times, quarterback's best friend's a running game and tight ends. You have tight ends. You can run the football. You just maybe have decided that Raiola is such a talent, and you've got the big receivers now that you come to depend on those guys. And I think that against a team like Ohio State, you're going to have to be able to run the football. And you don't have to run it for 200 yards, but you've got to hit it for 125 or 130, and you've got to show them that you're going to try to run the football. That gives your quarterback a chance when you want to throw. You've got to stay away from situations they know you have to throw and you have to throw. And to do that, you have to gain yards on first down. You've got to be in manageable second and third down situations. So first down in a game like this becomes absolutely critical because they're going to force you to 3 downs, but force you to 3 downs where it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, not where it's 3rd and 10. So, coming up with a good first down run scheme, run pass option, run play action option that gives you good safe throws. It gets you the 2nd and 5 instead of 2nd and 10. And I mean, that's the way you go into it as a coordinator. And, you hope your defense can hold up and give you the luxury of being able to do it that way the whole game, to do it your way where you're trying to get yards on first down and not trying to make up for a lot of points.
Gary Barnett's with us. Coach, I wanted to ask you, sorry to step on you there, about these moments as an OC, if you're taking arrows, or even as a head coach, how you talked to your team, how you talked with young players, how you talked with older guys that been in the program a long time that were trying to go out a different way. How did you handle it? How did you handle the leadership aspect between you yourself, but also the kids that other kids looked up to, that peer leadership?
The first thing you do is you act like what you want them to act like all the time. And so everybody's looking at you. You're the one that's been through this adversity more than once. You're the one that survived it. And so show them how to survive it. Show them the way how you work through it. And that's with your work habits, the way you talk with the players, how you don't panic, how you show how you feel about them and the confidence that you have in them. Show them what can work and the confidence you have in what they can do. But it really comes down to showing them how you want them to act.
You got to model it, right? You got to show them and teach, correct?
You got to model it.
What has flipped in Colorado? What's different with the Buffs since Nebraska? I want to reference that because you guys have played some really good football. Why is it happening?
Well, I think because they were not prepared for that Nebraska first quarter. They were not prepared for that crowd. They were not prepared for that energy. I think they're better prepared now. After the first half, that was a 10-0 Colorado game. Mm-hmm. So, once they got their footing, they made it look more like a game. We all know it really wasn't because of what happened in the first half. But you think of the two mistakes that they made in that football game that resulted in Nebraska touchdowns. One was, first of all, calling a quick out from your own 2-yard line, and then making the throw that Shedeur doesn't usually make that kind of throw, and then intercepting the ball, bobbling it, and having it go into the hands of a Nebraska player for a touchdown. There's 14 points. You take away the 14 points, it's a 14-10 game. And I think that's the way they looked at that game. And so now being prepared for whatever crowd, whatever thing is going to happen, I think they're better prepared. They've got some guys back. They are making an effort to rush the football, although 2 weeks ago we played Kansas State. We made no effort. We were minus 29 yards rushing for the game. So this isn't a consistent thing, Chris. This has been a thing that's been more of a response to what happened at Kansas State. And so we are playing better football. It's more because of our defense than anything else.
Well, in the same light, talk to me about a response to Indiana for Nebraska when they moved to Columbus and kick it off again on Big Noon, back-to-back showcases. You got to go play the game. But what can you take if you're Nebraska from Indiana and move towards Ohio State with?
Well, you probably don't even show them the film. You don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. You go back and you say, okay, let's go to the very first day of practice. What day did we all look towards? And you look up there on the schedule board. Which day did all of you couldn't wait to get to? And it's Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So you're there. It doesn't make any difference what's happened to get where you are now. Here you are. Here's your opportunity. Okay, here's what we can do better from last week. Here's what we have to do in order to beat them. Here's how we're going to practice, and that's the way you go at it. And so you relish the opportunity. These guys are competitors. They're not afraid to go into Ohio State. They're looking forward to it. The fans are afraid to go into Ohio State. The radio broadcasters are afraid to go into.
Oh, I can't wait to go get a beer. I'm good.
Ohio State. But you don't have to play. You don't have to play against this really good football team. But they've got to go in with confidence. They got to go in with a plan. That if you execute the plan, get to the fourth quarter, make it a tight game. We can win this football game. That's the way you go into it.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, let's do some rapid fire. A lot of good ball games going on. And I know Rourke had surgery. Washington's been a bit of up and down team, but I think they're a good football team. I like the Huskies. They're at Indiana. Hoosiers minus 6.5 with their backup, but their backup played well against Nebraska. Do you think Indiana has stopped to smell the roses, or has Sig let them do that?
No, I think Indiana's for real, and I think this is the game they can beat. Washington's a good team, not a great team. Mm-hmm. I would look at Washington much like I look at Nebraska. And so at home, what you guys just experienced, they can make that. When they decide to make that an exciting venue, they can do that. And they did it last week against you, and they'll do it again this week. They're on a roll. I know what it's like to be coaching a team like this right now.
Yeah. What's it like? Let's stop there for a second. What's it like to be a coach with the team on a roll right now?
Well, they do all the right things, and they practice like their hair's on fire, and everybody gets with the scores they've had, everybody's getting to play a lot, so you get everybody throwing in their best efforts in practice. You get better practices, and you get an excited football team with a hostile crowd, and what can you have better than that?
Yeah, that's a good Saturday is what it is.
Boy, it's like driving an automatic transmission as opposed to a stick shift. A stick shift, you got 3 pedals and 2 feet, and how's this all going to work? when you're driving an automatic, you just put it in drive, and all you got to do is hold on to the steering wheel and drive and steer it. So.
Did you have trouble with the manual?
No, I didn't, but getting used to it, I did.
They sold when I was learning how to drive, Coach. 87 Mustang, candy apple red. That's where I learned to drive, and then Dad sold it. Dad sold it once I turned 16, man. I'm still bitter about that.
I can tell there's an issue. You need therapy.
I need more than that. Boise, UNLV, both one-loss squads, both teams trying for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I know. This is such a big game, and I'd love to be able to watch this game. I hope I can, but I think Boise wins this game. That kid's really good, and I don't think UNLV is a hostile place to play. They're good though, and anything can happen. But I like Boise.
Notre Dame at Navy, the old option football by the midshipmen Irish -12.
Yeah, I'm taking Navy in the points on this game. Navy's, those guys are playing lights out. And, somebody told me, I forgot who it was, I think it was Fitz told me, he says, you know what, the worst thing can happen in this playoff is for Army to get into it, Army or Navy to get into it and win it all, because you can't prepare for that team in 1 week. And he's exactly right. If they're really good, and both of them are really good, they could get into a playoff where everybody has 1 week to prepare for that stuff, and they can't do it. So I'm going with Navy in this.
Oh, as an option fan, I'd love it.
Yeah.
I'd love going option football. Illinois at Oregon. Illinois is playing great ball. Oregon, #1 in the country.
Yeah, I'm taking Illinois the points. Oregon wins, but I think Illinois and that many points is Bielema's hard to beat by that many points.
How about Ole Mizzou at Bama?
Oof,
-14.
I know those teams are really equal, and there's got to be a little doubt in the Alabama locker room. It's 14. I think that's about right. Actually, I think that Alabama wins by that. Missouri couldn't run the ball last week, and they've got to be able to run the ball to beat Alabama to make it close. But I do have an M ring that I wear, and I'm going to go with Missouri.
All right. Mizzou in the points or Missouri outright?
No, I got to take the points.
Okay. I was just wondering if you got the ring on.
I'm very loyal, but not that loyal.
Texas and Vandy. Old Bevo got busted up by Georgia. And how about old Vandy just kind of rubbing their hands together here? What would happen in Nashville if they beat Bama and Texas in the same year?
And they could do it. I mean, that quarterback's just got enough stuff to him where he could do that. And that defense for Texas and the offensive line, they got exposed a little bit. So I think I like Vanderbilt the points in this game, but Texas to win.
I'll get you two more and we'll get out. Penn State at Wisconsin. Look-ahead moment for Penn State. They got Ohio State next weekend. Whiskey's running the football. Finally, Penn State -6.5.
I'll take Penn State. I think they're really good. Wisconsin's vulnerable. I like Penn State in this game.
All right. Kansas, K-State, -10 Wildcats.
Yeah.
Big game.
Kansas is a really good 2-6, 2-5, whatever they are, football team. And they didn't turn the ball over for their first time. Kansas State, though, I'm telling you, they're playing great football. I don't like the 10 points, but I like Kansas State to win. Okay. So I think Kansas will make a game of this, even though it's at Kansas State.
All right. Coach Gary Barnett. Coach, thanks for the insight today. As always, you have yourself a great weekend.
Great being with you, Chris. Thanks.
Good to spend a few minutes with Gary Barnett here, Hail Varsity Radio, as we're on the road in Columbus. First of a triple play for us. Back here tomorrow at 4 Central. And then the weekend edition, Tim May, Mr. Ohio State football, on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity, Nebraska, Ohio State at the shoe. Longtime man for Ohio State, Tim May with us. can find and follow him on Twitter at Tim_May Sports, LettermanRoad.com. Tim, how we doing, man? Bucks coming off a bye week.
Yeah, more like a bye-bye to that 1 week, you know what I mean, type thing. I mean, a 1-point loss to the number one team in the country. I think the poll voters have seen that the I guess immensity of that game and the final outcome decided by 1 point, not one touchdown or even as much as a field goal, and decided Ohio State is still worthy of being considered one of the elite teams in the country, sitting number 4. But of course, Ohio State has licked its wounds, and especially that last 20 seconds of that game were kind of crazy for all kinds of reasons, and trying to figure out what went wrong there that could be fixed in case you ever face a situation like that again. But time moves on. You guys know that as well as anybody. In college football, you got to get ready for the next week. I think luckily for Ohio State's sake, it had its second off week of the season, and I don't know if licking wounds is the right way of putting it, but I guess it is really when you think about it. It seems like Nebraska would have a lot more wounds than Ohio State at this point. Yeah. But so there's a lot of licking going on out there as Ohio State gets ready to play Nebraska.
Yeah, to your point about like licking wounds, if I had to say today, like if Oregon and Ohio State were matching up in a neutral site, say the Big Ten championship game, put that line out today, I'd probably favor Ohio State considering how it went in Eugene. So it's kind of interesting whenever you lay out just the mood in Columbus, because from here in Lincoln, if I had to say, considering how that game went, put it on a neutral field, I'd probably favor Ohio State.
Yeah, and Ohio State ended up being favored in that game. In the final analysis, even the odds makers saw it your way. You're quite the purveyor of the situation. And now, when you see some of these projections for the college football playoff, here we are halfway through the regular season, which means most of these will be thrown into the waste can also. When you consider how many huge games are left in this season, several of them are still, I'm stammering there, because several of them are still projecting Ohio State to win the Big Ten title and thus get that coveted bye in the first round of the college football playoff. But you're right. I mean, we can all sit back and go, if that game was played on a neutral field, Ohio State would do this. But you don't know that until you play it, right? And, Georgia won at Texas in convincing fashion in a game it had to win, and really defensively played so much better, like 5 times better than it had played against Mississippi State. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's how wacky a football season we're in the midst of, fellas.
It is just crazy. Week to week, are you playing up to your competition? You playing down? Are you the same team showing up? And the schedules itself have been really entertaining for the Texases and the Georgias of the world and the Alabamas and Ohio State. I mean, you guys, Iowa's not pedestrian on defense, and you guys turned it on against them. You go out there, you had 2 double-digit leads at Oregon, and then Penn State looming. Let's sneak in Nebraska. And you saw enough of the highlights. You looked at the Indiana game. It was a total obliteration and domination by Indiana physically and their game plan. Nebraska looked really unready for the moment, and they're going from that to you guys. And pretty glum in Lincoln. There needs to be excitement for Nebraska, Ohio State, but it's not been that way, Tim, for a long, long time on Nebraska's side.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I did see quite a bit of the game, but I was in the process of recording my first hole-in-one in my golfing career.
Good for you, man. I wish I would have been. 52
years in a scramble, which we won also. And I had quite the day early afternoon on Saturday, unlike Nebraska, which had quite the head-scratcher and kind of like brought down to reality big time. Fellas, we're talking about Indiana being one of only 3 teams in the Big Ten that's undefeated. You know what I mean? I mean, what are we talking about here? And, I guess as Kirk Cignetti says, Google it. I guess you can Google that now. Includes a box score of Indiana, Nebraska. But, yeah, I saw enough of it. I mean, Dylan Raiola, you got to remember ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whoever's listening to this, Dylan Raiola, as smooth as he looks as an operator, is still a freshman. Mm-hmm. And I think Nebraska paid a little bit of price for that on Saturday. We'll see if Ohio State can duplicate it from a defensive standpoint. But, yeah, I mean, it's asking a tremendous amount of a young man to come in as a freshman, no matter how ballyhooed he has, no matter that he once was committed to Ohio State, no matter that he once was committed to Georgia. He's that kind of talent. Nobody gave up on him. Kept knocking on his door and maybe checking his bank account. Run him down the line, whatever it takes these days to lure a guy. And but you're going to pay a price. Any coach will tell you that you're going to pay a price for starting a freshman quarterback. I think Nebraska did that. That doesn't mean he can't come into Ohio Stadium on Saturday and throw lights out and deliver some big time plays. I totally expect him to, based on his reputation, based on what I've seen of him so far this season. He's so smooth under pressure, but still, though, you can be smooth looking physically under pressure and still mentally make the wrong choice. So Ohio State will work very hard to make him have to make wrong choices on Saturday, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think the two questions, kind of to your point, and to bring it back to golf, is did Nebraska just shoot a 10 on a 600-yard par 5 with 3 water hazards, or do they shoot a 10 on a 115-yard par 3? The follow-up question is, can your freshman quarterback put it away and tee it up and bomb it down the middle of the fairway for the par 4 that's coming up next?
Well, the way I look at golf, and believe me, I've seen this before personally, a 10 is a 10. And believe me, it looks nothing like Bo Derek back in the day. So,
well done.
It's, yeah, but the bottom line is a 10 takes you out of contention is the main thing. And I think that's the best use of that analogy you just used, my man, is that you're not going to win that round. You know what I mean? You're probably not going to win that tournament, but you can learn from it. And, but whoever hits a out-of-bounds shot on purpose, right? I know I don't. Yeah. But then back to what you're saying, yeah, I mean, I think I talked with you guys in preseason. I expected Nebraska to be better because they're in another season under Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule is a tremendous college football coach, just like Kirk Cignetti is. And Kirk Cignetti, like, that little line, Google him if you don't know what he's all about. He's won every place he's ever been. Matt Rule has won every place he's ever been as a college football coach. He's quality, but, like I've told you guys several times, what bothered me about Nebraska over the last desert that they've been walking across is the defensive side of the ball. It just wasn't the quality I grew up watching when I was growing up in East Texas and then moving up here in the 70s. Just wasn't – the defense was not the quality you need to make a run for a championship. This idea that defense wins championships is baloney. You still got to score, right, and control the ball a little bit. But defense puts you in position to win championships. And 56 points, no matter how they came, wow, you're right, that is a 10 on a par 3. And if they need to get their act together. And I thought early in the year, they kind of had their act together defensively. I think it was the best defense I've ever seen in Nebraska, not being a long shot, but it looked like they made progress and could maybe be enough of a buffer for a freshman quarterback to find his footing and they get some things done. But we're talking about one weekend, man. We're talking about one Saturday afternoon with John Cougar Mellencamp and everybody else at Indiana Stadium. I'm sure Indiana took its stadium picture that day, just like they have done in the past when Ohio State shows up, because it's all red and it's full. And so I'm sure they did that. But, yeah, it was not – I didn't expect Nebraska to go undefeated. I thought it had a shot, though, after an early game this year to roll into Ohio Stadium perhaps, 6 or 7-0. But Illinois, you all saw what Illinois is all about last week. And so it hadn't been easy by any stretch.
Nebraska's only hope on Saturday might be if Ohio State completely looks past the Cornhuskers. Based on what you know about this program, based on what you know about Ohio State, is there a possibility of that happening, of Ohio State looking past Nebraska and already focused on Penn State?
Let's say Will Howard had been granted that he did slide with 1 second left. Ohio State was fiercely calling timeout there and didn't get it was not granted the timeout, and the fans stormed the field, and the officials, it looked to me like opted not to look at it. And let's say Ohio State had made the field goal from 50. Well, actually, it would have been like a 47-yard field goal. 45-yard field goal would have been from about the 45 because he got to the 28-yard line. Let's say that it all happened the way it should have, and it was the final frenzied seconds. Yeah, there would be a chance of Ohio State looking past Nebraska. I mean, for all kinds of reasons, number one of which is 56-7 Indiana and the Fighting Signetis. But now it's the opposite. Ohio State is, like we talked about, licking wounds and wanted to go out and flex its muscles again to show that, in fact, it is worthy of elite talk about it, and headed toward Penn State next week. What a showdown game that's going to be, again, for Ohio State. But, no, I mean, I think that chance of the Periscope being up has been scuttled.
Tim May's with us, Hail Varsity on the road here in Columbus. We'll spend a few more minutes with Tim May on the other side. Red Wine is checked in. Goose is here. Game Dog, good to have you. I want to tell you about our partners, Neiman & Sons Roofing, established in 1981. Trevor Travis, the family, incredible. A family-run company. They specialize in roofing, siding, gutters, and a strong commitment to customer satisfaction. They have a range of residential and commercial services for you, those exterior services like roofing, like siding, like gutters, and how about the holidays around the corner with those custom exterior lighting packages? Get a hold of Neiman & Sons today at 402-423-4853. NeimanandSons.com. It's where you can log on. They're trusted professionals, 4 decades plus. Community involvement's a real thing with Neiman & Sons. They have been a part of the Lincoln youth football scene for a ton of years. They have a team. They love being a part of the coaching staff, and they do amazing work when it's time to get that roof fixed, siding tweaked, gutters changed out, and that custom exterior lighting. Give a hold of Neiman & Sons today, NeimanandSons.com, 402-423-4853. Tim May continues. We're here live in Columbus with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Tim May with us, couple minutes at Hail Varsity Radio. Letterman Row is where you read Tim, watch his content, follow him on Twitter at Tim_May Sports. We love catching up and talking ball, Tim, and you touched on it with Nebraska's. Go ahead.
Vice versa. Go ahead now.
No, I was going to say Nebraska defensively has been better, but they just didn't look, again, ready or physical, which was off. They've had to carry a lot of heavy lift in here in the Rule era because the offense has been hit or miss, more miss from a points. There's just not been complimentary football, and that's a concern for Saturday. Ohio State's loaded defensively. You guys are getting better and back to being Ohio State, getting after the quarterback. But offensively, take me there with Will Howard, the maestro, Junkins and Travion running the football along with James Peoples, and then, of course, the receiving core. I mean, what did Oregon do to slow down Ohio State? And I'm using the air quotes here, slow down. 31 points, still a lot of points. But just moving forward here, Saturday, I mean, how does Nebraska hang in this thing?
Well, number one, Ohio State had like 450 yards total offense. They weren't just sitting there, and I know you know that. And then number two, Ohio State had the ball a lot longer than Oregon did, number two. Number three, Ohio State had more first downs than Oregon did. I think they had 20 and Oregon had 15. Oregon hit the big plays, man, on offense, or hit more big plays. Ohio State hit a few itself, but Oregon was able to execute a little better than the other, even Iowa was with its vaunted defense, although they got beat by Michigan State the other night. But Oregon was able to keep the game in front of them defensively for the most part. And, that's what you got to do against Ohio State, because you catch a guy on a flip-flop
as I call it, safety running up, and Jeremiah Smith, a talented freshman receiver for us, they catching a little curl in over the middle and just running right by a guy in the opposite direction, which he's done a couple of times this year. Emeka Egbuka, the same way. They're veteran savvy, other big-time wide receiver. And you haven't even seen some of the others play to their level yet, like Carnell Tate. Just Ohio State's got weapons across the board. There's no arguing about that. Even the tight ends have gotten involved in the passing game this year a little bit more. And then running back-wise, they've got two of the better running backs in the country. Oregon did a great job for the most part. They did a really good job when Quinshon Judkins was in the game of really neutralizing him, because he was, second or third in the nation in yards per carry going into that game, and he had a big fumble. The ball was actually ripped out of his hands more than a fumble early in that game. He really didn't see a whole lot of time or a whole lot of carries, but Travion Henderson had a couple of big runs in that game, but not enough. The bottom line is, in those games, sometimes it comes down to the other team just makes more big plays than you do, and that's what happened against Oregon. And they're extremely talented, cool customer quarterback, left-hander Dylan Gabriel. The thing you touched on earlier, the big beef about Ohio State defensively right now is it's not getting to the quarterback. It's not getting the sacks against like opponents. Whether Nebraska's a like opponent, I guess we've got to wait till 3:30 on Saturday after the dust is settled in Ohio Stadium to see whether, in fact, you could deem them that. I don't deem them that going into this game. But that noon start, it's Ohio State's had really good success defensively getting to the quarterback until they played a team that was basically equal, and they didn't do it on Saturday, or didn't do it enough, didn't pressure him enough, did not have a sack in the game. That was huge in that game. So, Ohio State's answering maybe more questions than Nebraska is, because I don't remember anybody picking Nebraska to win a national championship this year. But Ohio State finally met a team of its ilk and did not win the game. Lost by 1 point, but might as well have been 50, right? And so that's what's going on over here in Columbus right now.
Tim, we'll bump into you in Columbus, bud. Always love catching up and talking some ball. Thanks for a few minutes with us.
Do me a favor, Chris. If you do bump into me, say excuse me, okay? Because I know you Nebraska people are known for being gracious and really nice. I'll tell you what else is great. I mean, I really like every Oregon person I ran into out there. They're rivaling you guys for being nice people when you show up. So good luck.
Well, it's legalized out there, if I remember correctly.
It's Mr. Hole-in-One. So this is Mr. Hole-in-One. Pardon me. So
no more Mr. Four. It's Mr. Hole-in-One from now on.
Tim, you take care, bud.
You got it, man. See you guys.
Good to spend time with Tim May. As just great insight on Ohio State, thoughts on Nebraska. Let's talk some money. Let's talk some gambling. Let's talk Burke's best bet. Danny Burke with us at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. Stochastic is where you can also find him. Odd Shopper as well with Danny Burke. Pride of Chicago, I waved at you over Lake Michigan. How we doing?
Yeah, and I was waving right back, Schmitty. I'm doing good, my friend. How are you? And I guess how's the Chicagoland area treating you, or did treat you when you dropped in originally?
It was quick, and now we're in Columbus. But your wave was not as nice as mine. I waved with all 5 fingers. You just waved with one. But I deserve that from time to time. Let's sneak in some thoughts on Nebraska, Ohio State. Speaking of the bird. It kind of feels like that Saturday with Nebraska 25.5-point dogs coming off what happened last Saturday. Anything at all you like? In-game, overs, unders, laying the points, taking the points. How you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't gone too crazy in college football quite yet, just because we've been focusing a lot on the start of the NBA. And, in this game in general, I'm not necessarily enamored with. But, I mean, let's be frank. The only way you really have an opportunity to go with is fading Nebraska in some capacity. And I get that it's a high spread, and, maybe the boys can bounce back. But, I've said this line before, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. And you would think pretty much any other team, especially with the caliber Nebraska should be, should be capable of bouncing back in the sense of at least keeping it somewhat competitive, but teams from the past 10 years have not been able to do that, and I think the same is going to persist here. Now, again, if you fall into the category of, maybe that spread is too high, you think Nebraska can either put up some points or their defense can play a little bit more containment and at least limit some of that scoring, then maybe not even that, because I was going to say I would still go to the team total with Ohio State, because I think Nebraska's defense really is the huge issue here. And I know everybody's pointing fingers at Marcus Satterfield, and I get it. Believe me, I was not the biggest fan of the hire originally, like many people were not, and clearly it's not looking great over a couple of these important games. And I just think that defensively they were really shown their true colors. And again, this is something I alluded to when we were talking about this game last week. I said you saw a quality team in Illinois, a quality coach in Bielema expose that defense. How are they going to respond against arguably the best offense in the country? And you saw it right there. So Ohio State, Will Howard, they're going to get their momentum going, and I think you can look at a team total over and think that could be a viable play.
Danny, hang tight. We'll get some NFL and some more college football. Danny Burke with us, Burke's Best Bets. Hail Varsity winding down from Columbus.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Danny Burke is with us, Burke's Best Bets. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're live here in Columbus. More Hail Varsity tomorrow here at the Ohio State Marriott weekend edition of Hail Varsity and then Real Red Reaction. Danny, what NFL or other college games are you in on? Any NBA futures you're liking, bud?
Yeah, we could talk a little bit of NBA futures, and I'll give you a play for tonight's game. NBA futures-wise, look, I dabbled a little bit, not as invested in the futures market as I am when it comes to, say, NFL, but I did take a stab at a couple teams, and Elijah's going to be a fan here. I like the value with the Nuggets at 11-1 to win the championship. Last year can be attributed to type of a, hangover season for the Nuggets after winning the championship, and they had a better record still through the regular season. But when it came to the postseason, they just seemed, I don't know if complacent is the right word, but they just didn't have as much of that firepower that we witnessed the year before. Yes, the Western Conference is getting better, and the Nuggets still need to add some pieces, which I think they can easily do near the deadline, like a lot of contending teams do. And laugh all you want, but Russell Westbrook coming off the bench, at least through the regular season, is actually going to add a spark as well. So I like the Nuggets based on the value. They will be a top seed again. They won't be 11-1 when it comes down to the postseason time. I also took them over their wins. I can't remember the exact number. It might have been like 50.5, but was just really good bargain on this Nuggets team. I also took Wemby MVP at 21-1 odds. Do I think he actually wins it? Probably not. But again, if he can get into the conversation of top three, you're looking at a really good value price at that 20-1 spot where you either cash out if you're getting a good price, hedge, work around it somehow. But those were some of the futures bets I took there. And then for tonight, I took a piece of the Rams +3. Sean McVay, 9-1 ATS. His last 10 games against the spread on short rest. Darnold struggled on short rest. I get it's a different year for Darnold and company. The Rams are also healthy here. I'm taking the home underdog Thursday Night Football +3. It may seem gross and you got to plug your nose, but hey, you got to do that sometimes when betting the NFL.
Danny, quickly here, what do I do with Puka Nacua? He's on my fantasy bench.
Who else do you have? I mean, that's the biggest question. I feel like Cooper Kupp's a little bit more primed to go off, but who else you got?
My other receivers, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Jackson Smith, and Jigba.
I like Jackson and I like Tyreek, and Tyreek even said to get ready if you're a fantasy manager. So maybe you just hold off on Puka this week and see how he does.
I can do that. Thank you, Danny.
You got it.
Danny, we will holler again, my friend, and get locked in next week ahead of Nebraska UCLA. How's that sound? What do you got going tonight? You heading down to Wrigleyville?
I actually am heading toward Old Town. We're celebrating a friend's birthday. So, we're getting some nice Italian food and hopefully don't have to sweat out the game on my phone too much. But we'll see. Perhaps we'll be celebrating with a little glass of wine or so.
I like it. We're going to send you some Fairbury brand hot dogs. You know that.
Yes, sir. Good deal. But, looking forward to talking to you guys the next time. Enjoy the game in Columbus. Bring it home, Schmitty.
Yeah, you know how that happens. Appreciate you, Danny. There he is.
Yeah.
Pride of Chicago, always at bachelor parties, weddings, or birthday. I mean, he's a party connoisseur. I love it.
Well, I was telling you, I got added to the bachelor party planning group chat this week, so I've been planning one coming up in February. So I don't know how Danny does it, because as I go through this itinerary, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to survive.
Well, we are going to get caught up with Uncle Mitch Lundstrom down in the Art District tonight. He'll tell you and report back to you tomorrow. Live here in Columbus, Hail Varsity Roadshow. Back at you tomorrow here at the Marriott. Thanks.